Hey guys, it's your Jardier coming to you with another overtake tutorial. People often ask me, Jardier, how can I get better or faster in Assetto Corsa Competizione? Well, that's why I'm here today, guys. I'm gonna tell you some tips, or actually 5 tips, how you can get Lightning McQueen speed. Sim racing is no rocket science, but it can be quite tricky to know your way around, especially when you're starting off and coming new into the game. Usually, continuous practice will make you faster automatically, but there are some things you can directly change and focus on to enhance your lap times as soon as possible. The first thing I commonly see with people is that they race with the wrong settings in traction control and anti-lock braking system. Traction control is meant to prevent excessive wheel spin. If you turn up these settings, your car will be less twitchy, but more understeery and a bit slower on the exits. A lot of newcomers run the TC way too high and end up having a lot of problems, slow exits and a lot of understeer. If you want to know more about traction control, you can check out the Assetto Corsa Competizione tutorial where we highlight that in depth. Try gradually decreasing this amount and don't be fearful of what happens in the corners. If you know the track, you'll be okay. Just be careful, because if you decrease traction control too much, you will get oversteer on the corner exits, therefore lose time as well, or even spin. With ABS, this is a similar story. If you go too high, you will have a major problem. If you go too low, you will have a locking wheels. If settings is too high or too low, it really depends on how you drive. It's always important to find a great stability in between. But usually extreme ends of the options are too much and it causes problems. While traction control is very important for the handling of the car, there are other things, other aspects that you have to keep in mind that are important as well. For example, your steering inputs must be as smooth as possible. To stay as in front as possible, subscribe and hit that bell for the notification so you don't miss out any future videos with me. Assetto Corsa Competizione and iRacing are quite different games, but they have one thing in common. It is important to be precise with your inputs. No matter if it's the steering wheel or using the pedals, smooth inputs will force a better feeling for the game into your mind that is needed in order to build speed. Many of the newcomers will make the mistake of abruptly turning the wheel to the left and right, which can lead to the horrible crashes or simply a lot of time lost. A good way to fix this is a limit test. Drive a corner over and over and over and steer less hard every time. Test out the little action you have to do to find your minimum input. Then you can continue to find the perfect balance. You will actually notice that you don't have to steer that much or that hard to even make the corner. And that's really a beauty of the sim racing. You can't destroy anything, so you can do it over and over and over. So don't be afraid of testing. The perfect balance is also necessary when accelerating or braking. When stepping on the gas, do it slowly and progressive and not too suddenly. With braking it is similar. If you brake too hard into the corner and rock the wrong ABS settings, you might just slide straight out of the corner. The correct way to brake is to apply force and then release the pressure step by step as you are steering, otherwise you risk understeer. Would you like to see some braking tutorial for Assetto Corsa Competizione from me? Let me know in the comments. All the best inputs in the world won't necessarily bring you speed if you misjudge the car and track. So let's talk about that. The car-truck combination might be the most crucial when it comes to Assetto Corsa Competizione. If you are not able to identify what you need to do with them, you are always going to struggle. That's why it's important to do a little bit of research before. Let me give you an example. If you go on a bumpy track like Misano and you have a Lamborghini or Ferrari, you have to be especially careful on the curbs, because the car will not be as forgiving as, for example, Bentley or Aston Martin. Because you have to avoid curbs with these cars, you have to take a little bit wider lines, so you will lose a little bit of time per lap compared to these cars as I mentioned, Bentley or Aston Martin, who can take curbs with no problem. But on the other hand, your car will be better in the more twisty corners on the track. If you have to avoid the curbs, try to focus on the exits of the corner. Try to trail brake nicely into the corner and don't carry too much speed. This way you can get a smoother exit and ultimately gain a lap time. A perfect example is the exit of the Jardier at Spa. Coming out of there, you can find several tenths in your lap time if you take a lot of curb, because the speed you will carry into the camel straight right after that. This can also be done the other way around. If you, for example, drive Aston Martin, you can really use the racetrack up on the last millimeter of the track. You can use the curbs, you can use the exit. You have to really focus on every possible place to gain your speed. Another important part of getting faster results in driving around the others. Anyone knows the feeling of being stuck behind a way slower driver, but what I commonly see online is people getting impatient and crashing themselves or others out when they try to force an overtake. Impatience is one of the worst traits you can have as a racer. Of course, nobody wants to be driving slowly for the entire race just to be safe, but people overestimate themselves a lot. If you find yourself in a battle with another person, I always like to stay predictable. This might sound like it's working against you, but it's not. If you drive around wildly, the chance of bending your vehicle is a lot higher because others won't be able to avoid a crash. Let's take Monza for example. How often have you seen the dive bomb into turn 1 in an online race? I can't even tell you how many times I saw it myself. It is very unnecessary if you can simply wait and try it later. People are very impatient in Monza and they try to overtake in every possible opportunity, but I prefer to literally stay behind drivers and wait for later moments. If you are attacking, try to read your opponent and every lap find your opportunity where you can do the future attack. Don't just send it left and right, because in that way you will actually not gain the position and you will probably even lose way more time in the long way. And lastly, a secret to getting faster in a Corsa competizione can be right pit stop. Overcut or undercut can be extremely powerful in this game. If you are a believer in a short races, this point will not apply to you. But if you like to stay on track for longer, knowing when to stop can make or break your race time. Usually there are two ways to structure your stops to have a tactical advantage. The overcut is when you stay out longer than the rest of the field on used tires. Usually this is the best done when you can't pass someone on track and you still feel you can get a few seconds out of your tires once your opponents have pitted and you have a free track in front of you. The undercut is done very similar reasons but works the opposite way. If you are stuck behind the slower cars, you want to pit before everybody else and use the clean air and fresh tires to gain on your opponents. The hope is to be far enough ahead once they have come into their pit stops. It can be tricky, but sometimes it's worth the risk. What else you can do when you can't pass someone? Just try to do some smart pit stop choices. The choice is yours. If you're eating the tires for lunch, it's maybe better to consider undercut instead of overcut. Guys, unfortunately, I don't have a magic button to make you 10 seconds faster, but if you follow the step by step, you can always find a few tenths or even better, smarter strategy than your opponents. Building your pace is very important, but if you are aware of your surroundings and you're not afraid of trying something new, you can find yourself in the purple sectors sooner than later. For more esport racing content in general, visit overtake.gg or subscribe to the YouTube or check out the other social medias. If you like the content as well, make sure to check out the previous video of the lap guide on a Suzuka. On the right, there is something for you. And as usual, guys, it was a great fun for being here. And thank you so much. Make sure to subscribe and see you guys next time. Ciao!